The sky had changed faster than anyone expected. 10 minutes earlier, it had been a flat gray afternoon, the kind kids ignored when they walked home from school. Now it churned with green flashes and twisting sheets of dust that raced across the empty parking lots. Luke Harland pulled the engine into the south drive of Ridgeview Middle School, just as the sirens reached their second cycle. The sound wasn't clean. It wavered, the way it did when the wind bent the poles. He stepped out into a pressure that felt wrong. The air tasted metallic, heavy. He'd felt it before, twice in his career, and once as a teenager during a tornado that tore apart half the county. He didn't say a word about that memory to the crew behind him. He just grabbed his radio and helmet and started toward the double doors. A teacher met him halfway, running with one shoe missing. "They moved everyone into the gym," she shouted. Some kids were still inside when part of the ceiling came down. "How many?" Luke asked. 30, maybe more, I don't know." A gust shoved her sideways. Luke caught her shoulder and guided her toward the building. The wind roared above them like an engine spooling too high. Inside the hallway, lights flickered. Papers skittered across the floor from under classroom doors. Somewhere deeper in the school, something heavy slammed. Luke pulled his radio. "Engine 3 to command. I'm going in for assessment. Gym entrance on the west side." Command answered through static. "Copy, but be advised. Radar shows rapid rotation. You'll have less than 5 minutes before impact." Luke knew what that meant. 5 minutes before the real violent part hit. He picked up his pace. The gym doors were propped halfway open by a broken cart. The second he stepped through, he heard crying, scattered, coming from different pockets of the room. Emergency lights glowed weakly from the far corners. The center of the gym was a mess. Half the ceiling tiles were on the floor, and a steel support beam had buckled enough to pin part of the bleachers. "Fire department," Luke yelled. "If you can hear me, sound off." Small voices answered. A cluster of kids huddled against the north wall with a teacher trying to keep them calm. Another group crouched under the last intact row of bleachers. Dust hung in the air like fog. Luke approached the nearest teacher, a man in his early 30s who looked a little dazed. "Anyone hurt?" "A few bruises. Maybe a sprain," he said. "But there are kids trapped behind that beam." Luke followed his hand. Behind the collapsed section, he saw a foot, unmoving. "All right, stay low. Keep them against the wall. I'll get everyone out." The teacher nodded, though his eyes showed he wasn't sure anyone could promise that. Luke moved carefully toward the fallen beam. The building groaned above him. Wind pressure thumped against the outer wall like fists. He dropped to one knee beside the trapped foot. "Talk to me," he said. "Who's here?" A boy's voice answered, thin but steady. "It's me and my sister. She's stuck under the seat part." Luke leaned in, sweeping debris aside with his glove. "You both breathing okay?" "Yes." "She's scared." "All right, I'm gonna get this beam off you. Stay flat, cover your head." He radioed command. "Engine 3 interior. I've got at least 2 pinned. Structural integrity's compromised but survivable for now." Static then. "Copy. But tornadoes on the ground. You need to evacuate." Luke looked at the kids. Heard more crying from behind the fallen bleachers. Negative. Not leaving without them. He set the radio down and wedged his shoulder under the lower end of the beam. It didn't budge at first. He repositioned, braced his boots, and pushed harder. The metal shifted just enough for him to drag the boy out by the wrists. The boy scrambled free, coughing. "Where's your sister?" He pointed deeper, where the beam had crushed the bench. Luke crawled in further. The girl was small, maybe 8, curled tight with dust in her hair. "You're okay," he said, lifting pieces off her. "We're getting you out." Another slam echoed overhead. The kids screamed. The whole gym trembled. Luke wrapped his arms around the girl and backed out fast. He had just reached the open floor when his radio crackled again. Urgent now. "All units evacuate the school. Tornado crossing the highway. You have seconds, Luke." He looked at the 24 faces staring at him from the wall. He didn't hesitate. "Not leaving," he said into the radio. "I've still got kids inside." The radio kept barking at him, but Luke clipped it back to his coat and focused on the room. The air pressure dropped so fast his ears popped. Dust drifted sideways, pulled toward the north wall as if the whole gym had started to tilt. The tornado was close. Too close to trust anything above their heads. He moved the rescued siblings to the huddled group. "Everybody stay low. Hands over your necks," he said. "I need to finish a sweep." The older teacher tried to argue. You can't go back there, the wall's bowing. I see it, Luke said. Stay tight. If anything shifts, crawl under the bleachers. He didn't wait for a reply. He jogged toward the east side, where the far bleachers had collapsed inward. There was a wedge of space under the stacked plywood, just big enough for someone to be trapped. He dropped to his belly and shined his helmet light inside. A girl's voice trembled out of the dark. Over here. He exhaled slowly. Good job talking. Are you stuck? My leg. Something's on it. Okay. Keep talking to me. He reached in, letting his glove follow the sound. He found her sneaker first, then her shin. The bleacher frame pinned her just above the ankle. She was shaking. I know it hurts, he said, but I'm getting this off you. He braced his shoulder against the lower beam, trying to lift it enough to pull her clear. It shifted half an inch, just enough to feel impossible. He tried again, using his legs, his back, anything with leverage. Wood cracked somewhere overhead and dust showered down. The beam didn't move. Luke pulled back and scanned the gym. He spotted a metal floor jack near the equipment room door, something the custodians used for maintenance. He crawled out and sprinted over, grabbed it, and slid back into the debris gap. Okay, you're gonna feel it lift, he said. Stay still. He wedged the jack under the beam. Each crank lifted the frame just a fraction. The girl whimpered but didn't panic. When he had enough clearance, he hooked her under the arms and eased her out. When she was free, she clung to him, her hands shaking hard. It's okay, he said quietly. You did great. Let's get you to the others. He carried her toward the group. The wind roared again, louder than before, like a freight train skidding across concrete. The lights flickered twice and went black. Only the emergency signs glowed red. The north wall flexed inward, not gently, like someone was pushing it with a truck. Luke raised his voice. Everyone under the bleachers now. The teachers didn't argue. They herded kids into the safest low section. Luke placed the injured girl beside them, wrapped a gym mat around her, and scanned the gym again. Everybody accounted for? He asked. The younger teacher shook his head. We're missing 2. They were heading to the locker rooms when the alarms went off. Luke felt a cold punch in his chest. The locker rooms were on the west side, closest to the tornado's approach. He grabbed his radio again. Engine 3 interior. I'm moving to the locker corridor for 2 missing students. Command came through in bursts of static. Luke, the main funnel is crossing the school property. You cannot stay in that structure. Copy, Luke said. Still going. He pushed through the gym doors. The hallway lights flickered and died as he moved. Ceiling tiles lay scattered like broken shells. The far windows pulsed inward from wind pressure. Dust haze made everything feel narrower. As he reached the locker rooms, he heard it. A faint banging followed by a voice. Hello? We're stuck. Luke followed the sound to the girls' locker entrance. The door was jammed with a fallen beam. He shoved, but it didn't move. He crouched and yelled through the gap near the floor. Fire department, how many in there? 2, a girl called back. Something fell and blocked the door. Luke wedged his Halligan tool under the beam, but the angle was tight. The building groaned again. He didn't need a structural engineer to know the south section of the school was starting to fail. He reset his stance, put every bit of strength into the pry, and managed to shift the beam just enough to force the door open by maybe 6 inches. Back away from the door, he shouted. He squeezed through sideways, scraping his shoulder. Inside, the 2 girls stood by the sinks, trying not to cry. Plaster dust coated their hair. One held the other's hand like she wouldn't survive letting go. You're all right, Luke said, guiding them toward the exit. We're going back to the gym. Stay low and stay with me. He got them to the door, then heard the worst sound of the day, a deep crack, heavy, followed by a shudder through the floor. He looked down the hallway. The ceiling at mid-corridor sagged, then split. Pipes burst. Water sprayed down like rain. The tornado wasn't just close anymore. It was tearing at the building. Luke kept his voice steady. Move! Fast but low. They crawled across the hallway as debris fell behind them, pieces clanging off lockers and sending echoes down the corridor. When they reached the gym doors, the noise changed. Lower, heavier, almost like the entire school took one long breath inward. Luke pushed the girls through the doorway. The gym was darker now. Emergency lights flickered red against dust clouds. Kids huddled under the bleachers. The older teacher was praying under his breath. Luke checked the structural beams above. The southwest corner was starting to peel upward. The tornado was pulling at the roof. He crouched low and shouted, "Stay down! Cover your heads!" A shockwave hit the outside wall. The gym shook. A basketball hoop ripped free and bounced across the floor. Wind howled through new cracks in the roof. Luke lowered himself over the injured girl, shielding her. His radio crackled again, barely intelligible. Command was yelling something. Evacuation orders, final warnings. But the wind swallowed every word. The roof above them groaned and lifted another inch. Luke tightened his grip on the floor and muttered, almost to himself, "Nobody's leaving alone. Not today." The next 30 seconds felt stretched like time quit behaving. The pressure inside the gym plunged again. Kids whimpered under the bleachers. The teachers tried to hold them steady, but the entire building was trembling now, as if something massive outside was trying to peel it open. A metal support brace snapped above the southwest corner. The sound cut through the room like a rifle shot. Luke lifted his head just enough to look across the gym. The roof panel above the basketball hoop bowed upward, then slammed back down as the tornado shifted. He spoke loud, calm. "Stay covered. Do not move unless I tell you." The older teacher crawled closer, voice shaking. "Is this it? Is this the part where it hits us?" "It's already hitting us," Luke said. "But the structure's holding more than it looks." He said it because the man needed to hear it, not because it was fully true. A wave of wind punched through a seam in the wall. Mats flew across the floor, tumbling end over end. A scoreboard cable snapped and swung like a whip. Luke pressed the injured girl's head down and shielded her with his chest. Another shock hit the building, this one deeper, like the foundations shifting. The gym doors on the east end blew open. Debris skated across the floor. For a moment, Luke worried the entire roof would lift, but then the wind eased just slightly. Not calm, never that, but enough for him to hear something internal. Crying, lots of it. Kids losing control. He scanned the area under the bleachers. The younger teacher was doing his best, but panic spreads fast in tight spaces. One kid tried crawling out, shaking uncontrollably. Luke moved fast, keeping low. He reached the boy and guided him back with a hand on his shoulder. "You're all right," he said. "You stay with your group. We're riding this out together." The roof responded with another sickening groan. Luke checked the seams where the walls met the ceiling. The southwest corner was now separated by maybe half an inch. That was bad, but not immediate failure bad, at least not yet. Then the emergency lights flickered again, once, twice, and went dead. The gym fell into near darkness except for faint daylight squeezing through torn seams in the roof. A few kids started crying harder. Luke turned on his helmet light. "Eyes on me," he said, the beam cutting through dust. "We're still in this. Tornadoes shifting. Pressure's easing. We stay put." He didn't know whether the pressure was easing or the building was simply resigning itself, but they didn't need his uncertainty. Another gust slammed the north wall. The paneling flexed inward almost a foot before bouncing back. The metal braces shrieked. A few kids screamed and covered their ears. Luke dropped to one knee. The floor vibrated under him. He keyed his radio. "Engine 3 interior, we're still here. Jim is taking heavy damage. I've got all students accounted for." The reply came through broken static. "Pull back. School is losing sections. Tornado shifting east. Hold if you can. Hold if you can. Not evacuate. Not run. Just survive." Luke steadied himself and crawled back to the group. He checked the injured girl again. She was scared but alert. Good sign. The two girls he'd rescued from the locker rooms huddled together, hands locked. The younger teacher leaned close. "If the roof goes, what do we do?" "We go lower," Luke said. "We use the bleachers, we use the mats, anything with weight. What about you?" "I'll be where I need to be." The man didn't argue. A long, low rumble rolled over the building. Not thunder, tornado rotation. The kind that vibrated in your ribs. Luke looked toward the torn seams. Dust was being sucked upward. The funnel must have been passing along the west side of the building now, dragging at the roof like a giant hand. He crawled to the far beam where the bleachers had once been anchored. He pressed against it, testing for movement. It held, barely. A crash echoed overhead, something big tearing free. A roof panel clattered down onto the opposite end of the gym, sending sparks across the floor as it hit exposed wiring. "Head down!" Luke shouted. One of the kids screamed. Another started hyperventilating. The younger teacher tried to help him breathe, but the boy was shaking too hard. Luke reached them in seconds. He put a hand on the kid's back. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You're safe right here. You hear that wind? That means it's moving past us." "It sounds worse," the boy gasped. "Worse usually means it's leaving," Luke said. "You're doing everything right, just stay low." The boy clung to the bleacher frame but managed to slow his breathing. A new sound rose above the wind, not louder, but sharper. Metal tearing, the kind of sound you never ignored. The southwest corner of the roof lifted another 2 inches. Luke felt the shift through his boots. He looked at the teachers. Everyone crawled to the center. Stay under cover. Move now. They moved quickly, guiding kids deeper under the safest section of bleachers. The injured girl was carried to the middle, still wrapped in the mat. Luke stayed on the outer edge, closest to the failing corner. The roof lifted, then slammed down, sending dust and insulation exploding across the room. Luke crouched into the impact, hands braced on a support beam. His helmet rattled. His shoulder jolted with the vibration. The wind dropped, not completely but enough to change the tone. The tornado was passing. The building still creaked, still threatened, but the crushing pressure was easing. Luke felt it in his lungs first, the air coming back heavier, steadier. He looked at the kids, at the teachers, at the half-collapsed corner that somehow had not ripped open entirely. He exhaled once. "We hold tight," he said, voice low. "Storm's not done yet, but we made it through the worst." He wasn't celebrating yet. The structure still had to survive the tail end, and they still had to get out once it was safe. But for the first time in the last brutal minutes, the building wasn't fighting them as hard. Luke shifted his weight, ready for whatever came next. No kid was leaving alone, not on his watch. For nearly a full minute, nobody moved. The storm still roared outside, but the violence had changed. Less ripping, more fading. Wind still pushed against the walls, but the blows were lighter now, uneven, the way they got when the main funnel shifted downrange. Luke kept his helmet light angled upward, watching the beams, tracing each vibration through the structure. The roof no longer flexed in big, dangerous waves. Now it only shuddered in short pulses. He let out a slow breath. "We stay put just a little longer," he said. "Let the back end settle." The kids were quiet. Too quiet, like they were afraid to breathe wrong and bring the storm back. One of the teachers wiped his forehead with a shaking hand. The other held a girl who hadn't stopped crying since the ceiling panel fell earlier. Luke checked the injured girl again. Her breathing was steady. She clutched his sleeve every time the building groaned, but she wasn't panicking. "You're doing great," he said. "Almost out of this." A weak voice spoke from the middle of the group. "Is the tornado gone?" Luke looked toward the damaged southwest corner, where daylight showed through a thin crack. Dust still drifted upward. "Almost," he said. "It's moved past the main building. We wait for command to confirm." His radio crackled, struggling through interference. "Engine 3, do you copy? Structural collapse in units approaching." Luke pressed the button. "Command, this is Engine 3. All students accounted for. Jim has partial roof failure, but we're stable for now." Static swallowed most of the reply, but one line cut through clean. "Storm is east of your position. Hold until units reach the south entrance." Luke clipped the radio back on. "All right," he said. "We get ready to move." He crawled along the outer edge of the group, checking each kid. A few had scrapes, one had a nosebleed. Nothing life-threatening. The teachers were shaken but functional, better than he expected after what they'd just ridden out. When he reached the far end of the bleachers, he noticed something. The doors leading to the east hallway were rattling, not from wind, but from pressure changes inside the building. Somewhere else in the school, a section must have given way, creating a draft. He didn't love that. Internal collapses could chain together. He turned to the group. "Listen up. When I say move, we stay low and head straight for the gym doors. Do not stand. Do not break from the group. Teachers lead the front. I'll run the back." The younger teacher nodded, swallowing hard. "How bad is the rest of the school?" "No idea," Luke said. "But we're taking the fastest route out." A deep thud echoed somewhere down the hall. Maybe a wall panel falling. Maybe a door slamming in the wind. Whatever it was, it reminded him they were still inside a damaged building. "Time to go," he said. He helped the injured girl into his arms, keeping her close to his chest. The teachers guided the rest of the kids out from under the bleachers. Some stumbled on stiff legs. Others just crawled automatically, too exhausted to think. The gym floor was covered in dust and pieces of insulation. Luke scanned the ceiling one last time, then waved them forward. They slipped through the east doors into the hallway. It was darker here. Emergency signs flickered near the floor. Water dripped from a burst pipe. Locker doors hung open like crooked teeth. A section of ceiling grid had collapsed across the middle of the corridor. Luke motioned. Under it, one at a time. Stay low. The teachers moved the kids quickly, guiding them under the hanging tiles and twisted metal. Luke followed last, ducking with the injured girl still in his arms. The beam above him creaked but didn't fall. They reached the corner where the hallway met the main corridor. The exit doors to the south wing were half open, pushed inward by earlier gusts. Beyond them, the glass looked warped but intact. Outside, light was brighter now, storm gray, not tornado green. A pair of firefighters appeared through the doorway, helmets covered in rain and grit. "Engine 3, one of them shouted. "We've got you. Let's move them out." Luke felt something loosen in his chest. Not relief exactly, but the permission to let adrenaline fade just a notch. He guided the teachers forward. The first group of kids rushed past the firefighters and into the open air, where paramedics waited under a partially sheltered awning. The injured girl in Luke's arms tightened her grip around his neck as he stepped outside. He kept his voice low. "You're safe now," he said. "Storm's past us." She didn't answer, but her breathing eased. Outside, the world felt unreal. Debris everywhere, branches snapped, a piece of metal roof wrapped around a fence post. Wind still blew hard, but the violent rotating pull was gone. A paramedic hurried over with a blanket. Luke lowered the girl onto a stretcher. "She's got a leg injury," he said, "pinning from debris. No heavy bleeding." "We got her," the medic said, securing the blanket around her. Luke straightened and looked back at the school. The southwest corner of the gym was torn open like someone had punched through it. Part of the roof was peeled back in a jagged flap. He felt the weight of it, how close that had been. The teachers came out next, guiding the last few kids toward triage. Some clung to them. Others stared blankly, too wrung out to process anything. One of the firefighters from the incoming crew approached Luke. "Command said the whole set of classrooms on the west side collapsed. If you'd tried to move them that way..." Luke shook his head. "Wasn't an option. You got everyone out," the man said quietly. Luke looked at the kids, tired, shaking, crying, alive. That was the job. A medic walked over. "You need evaluation too, sir. Your shoulder looks off." Luke only now noticed the ache. "Later," he said. "I'm fine." But adrenaline had a way of lying, and the medic clearly knew it. Before Luke could argue more, a small hand tugged his turnout coat. It was the boy he'd pulled from under the bleachers, the one who'd panicked earlier. He looked up at Luke with reddened eyes. "You didn't leave us." Luke crouched despite the stiffness in his back. "That's not how we do things." The boy nodded once as if that settled something deep. Luke stood again, stiffness radiating across his shoulders. The storm clouds were already drifting east, leaving behind a trail of shredded trees and twisted debris. Behind him, the school still groaned, settling into its new broken shape. He watched the last of the kids get checked in at the triage line. The younger teacher approached, voice low. "I don't think any of us would have made it without you." Luke shook his head. "You kept them calm. That matters more than you think." The man looked at him for a long moment. "Still, you refused to leave." Luke exhaled, eyes wandering back to the torn roof. "They were scared. It's different when they're scared." "What's different?" "Everything," Luke said. And for the first time since the sky turned green, he let himself feel the exhaustion hit in full. The triage area grew quieter as the immediate chaos settled. Medics worked steadily, checking each student twice, making sure no hidden injuries slipped by. Parents hadn't been allowed in yet. The area was still technically an active incident scene, but a crowd was forming behind the taped perimeter, anxious, crying, waiting for names. Luke stayed a few steps back from the medic line, watching the kids get settled onto blankets, jackets, anything dry. Someone handed him a bottle of water. He didn't remember who. He took a sip and realized his hands were shaking from the come-down. A captain from another engine company walked up. His coat was soaked through, helmet tilted back. "Command wants a full interior report when you're ready." "Give me a minute," Luke said. His voice sounded older than usual. Not tired, just worn down in a way that came after certain calls. "You got it," the captain said. "Hell of a thing you walked into." Luke didn't answer. Compliments never landed right after a close call. Not while the adrenaline was still leaking out of his system like air from a punctured tire. A gust of wind moved through the triage area, carrying the smell of wet insulation and snapped timber. The storm was gone, but its fingerprints were everywhere. Uprooted shrubs, bits of roofing, half a goalpost lying across the faculty parking lot. Luke's radio hissed once, then went silent. Dispatch was clearing channels for priority traffic. Other neighborhoods had taken hits too. He scanned the group one more time, counting kids out of instinct. 34, 2 teachers, every single one alive. A medic approached him again, more insistent this time. "Sir, I need to check that shoulder. It'll wait." "It shouldn't." Luke gave him a look, the kind older firefighters could get away with. The medic sighed. "Fine, 5 minutes, then I'm coming back." When the medic walked off, Luke finally allowed himself to sit on the back bumper of a rescue truck. His knees didn't exactly cooperate, and the moment he lowered himself, his whole right side complained. He looked down the street. The storm clouds were thinning, letting streaks of late afternoon light cut through. That strange calm after a tornado, the kind that made the whole world feel off balance. A voice suddenly called from behind the medic line. "Luke." It was Chief Marin, coat half-buttoned, helmet still clipped to her belt. She looked like she'd sprinted across the entire parking lot. "You good?" she asked. "I'm upright." "That's not what I asked." Luke shrugged with the wrong shoulder and immediately regretted it. "We made it out with everyone, that's what matters." Marin exhaled through her nose, relieved. "We thought the gym roof had fully collapsed. We were ready to force entry from the south wall. It almost did," Luke said. She nodded, looking over the ruin of the school. "You buying time in there, that made the difference." He shook his head. "They needed someone to stay calm. Anyone could have done it." "That's not true," Marin said. "Plenty of people freeze in situations like that. You didn't." He didn't respond. Praise never fit right, not after calls like this. They stood there in silence for a moment, listening to the quiet bustle of triage, the distant hum of generators, the creak of the school settling into whatever shape it had left. A sheriff's deputy approached the perimeter, speaking to a group of frantic parents. They weren't being allowed through yet. Too much debris, too many hazards. But Luke could see the strain in their faces as they peered past the tape, searching for the moment they'd get the all clear. Marin turned to him. "Once command green lights family reunification, you want to stick around?" Luke nodded. "Yeah, they should see a steady face when they come get their kids." Marin rested a hand on his good shoulder. "Then I'll tell them you're here." She walked off to deal with another incoming unit. Luke stayed seated, letting the world settle into place around him. A few minutes later, the medic returned, knelt beside him, and examined the shoulder he'd been ignoring. "Sprain at best," the medic said. "Maybe a strain. No deformity, so it's probably not dislocated. But you need ice and rest." Luke smirked. "Rest? You must be new." "Don't start," the medic said. "I'll get you a sling if I have to." He walked off before Luke could reply. Across the parking lot, command finally gave the order to begin reunification. A deputy lifted part of the tape. Parents rushed forward, careful but desperate. Kids cried. Adults cried. Teachers cried. It was messy, loud, human. The injured girl, now splinted, wrapped, and ready for transport, spotted Luke as she was rolled toward the ambulance. She lifted her hand in a tiny wave. Luke raised his fingers back. One of the paramedics leaned toward him. "She keeps asking if you got out okay." "She didn't have to worry about me," Luke said. "Kids worry anyway," the medic replied, then closed the ambulance doors gently. Luke watched as the paramedic unit pulled away, siren off, steady speed. Nothing urgent now, just care. More families were reunited, some clinging so tight Luke wondered how their ribs didn't crack. Kids who had been steady in the gym suddenly broke down in their parents' arms. Luke didn't blame them. After storms like this, emotions always came in waves. The younger teacher approached, looking steadier now. "Parents keep asking who stayed with them," he said. "They're going to want to thank you." Luke shook his head. "Tell them the teachers kept their kids alive. That's the truth. You were in the gym the whole time." "So were you," Luke said. The teacher nodded, but the look on his face said he still didn't buy it. Sunlight pushed through another break in the clouds, landing across the debris field like a spotlight. Dust sparkled in the beam. The wind was soft now, just regular wind again. Luke finally stood. His shoulder hurt. His knees felt tight. His turnout gear was coated in dirt and insulation, but he was steady. He scanned the triage area one more time. No more crying, no more panic, just relief. Marin called from across the lot. "Luke, you ready for a debrief?" He took one more look at the school, broken, twisted, still standing in places it shouldn't have. Then he nodded. "Yeah, let's wrap it up." As he walked toward her, he heard one of the parents behind him whisper to their child, "He stayed with you? In there? The whole time?" The kid nodded. Luke didn't turn around. He didn't need to. He just kept walking, tired but steady, the way someone does after giving everything they had and knowing, deep down, they'd do it the same way again tomorrow.